Get ready before life happens. The podcast helping you navigate life's what ifs.
Welcome to Get Ready Before Life Happens. I'm your host, Tony Stewart. Today I'm joined by Frances Yong, founder of White Byte and anti-scam evangelist. Frances, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me. I'm really honored to be here, and Happy New Year, everyone.
Yeah, thanks for being here, Frances. I'm excited and honored that you're here. So tell us a little bit about your origin story and how it led you to becoming an anti-scam evangelist.
I wouldn't call myself an anti-scam evangelist. I think that's stretching it a bit. I like to think that I am one, but I hope I live up to that reputation. Well, my background is in fraud and cybercrime risk. I used to do that as a profession. Then during the COVID, so many things happened during COVID lockdown. So in where I live in Singapore is a different country, and my mother lives in Malaysia. So during the lockdown, she was all by herself. She's very independent, mobile, agile, able to manage herself. So she was living by herself during those years of lockdown. She was 80 years old when a scammer called her and she fell for it. So it was a lucky draw scam, and she worked till she was 74 because, as I said, she was able and she was lively and very quick-minded. But unfortunately, she fell for the scam and she lost all her savings at age 80.
No.
The sad part, to make that even worse was that we didn't know about it. During lockdown, all we could see was her forehead, because when we call her on FaceTime, the position of her phone, she thinks that we're looking at her, but actually we're not. So the camera really only positions at her forehead. So we didn't quite pick up the subtle nuances in what she was saying, in her behavior, until borders reopened about 6 to 8 months later. And then when I visited her, I realized she was just different. So I brought her for a short holiday, and that was when we realized that something was wrong. And eventually, in one of her lucid moments, she then told me that I think I got scammed. And that was when I found out the full story. We got her for a psych evaluation, and we found that, she has slipped into dementia. So that episode, really weighed on me. And I kept asking myself, as a fraud and cybercrime risk professional, and here I am devising frameworks and learning messages for the community, for our customers, for the bank. I was working in the bank at that time. What was I doing? I overlooked the people that was really closest around me in my perimeter, and so then I decided this is what I have to do. I'm going to stand up for the lesser people, the more underprivileged, the marginalized, those who have lesser access to digital knowledge and cyber safety education. And so White Byte was born.
Wow, that's quite the story, and that is so sad to hear. Were you able to help your mother recover any money or anything?
So unfortunately not. And I can also appreciate how that would not have helped in any way, because it's been a few months since the incident has taken place. As a fraud professional, we know during our investigation that the quicker you report it, the higher the chances of it being that we could do something about it. But bear in mind, this was during the lockdown. At that time, I think the global organizations, everyone just began working from home full scale. Everyone was still trying to get their act together. So when borders reopened, firstly, there was already a time lapse. A period has already passed. The money that was stolen would have gone around the world 3-4 times over. They would have been used, laundered, and in any number of ways. There wouldn't have been a sliver of a chance for me recovering anything. So the only thing that I could do was to make sure the bank was aware of it, and the police were notified. So that was all I could do.
Yeah, that is so hard because I do know from working with the insurance regulator in California that it is hard for regulators. And like you said, if a lot of time has passed, it becomes harder. And I think the other thing that you mentioned is the money moving around the world so quickly is like, so that means, from what I understand, is fraud is a global thing. So it probably wasn't somebody local. Can you go into that a little bit more about how that works so people can just be aware of the scale?
Well, every crime, I believe, especially when it's a transaction, it's a financial crime, I always believe that it is not just one crime. It all starts from something different. So, and it continues to be something different. Why are criminals in the financial crime industry sad that I call it an industry now, right? It's really an
Mhm.
economy by itself. In the world of financial crime, a lot of the times what happens is we think about the motivation. Why are they doing this? It's not to get more money, it's to get more money to fund something else. So there is the end goal is something different. The end goal is more crimes, whether it is being obtained to fund more illegal drugs trafficking, to fund human trafficking. Why are they bringing the humans in? It's to fund human trafficking so that they have workers to then distribute the drugs, to manufacture the drugs, but to also start different things that would continue funding the drugs. It's building an entire ecosystem of crime. So human trafficking back into where they are to run casinos, to work in scam centers. So a lot of this money, most of the time when it comes in, is actually to fund a lot of different things. It is an entire criminal ecosystem.
Yeah, and it's just so scary to think about because it's not just one person. These are organized people and they have a playbook. And unfortunately, they put a lot of thought and resources into it.
Yeah.
So it's very challenging. Is for people watching, and listen to the podcast, as you may have heard my recent episode, the 7 tips or the 7 habits of highly effective scammers, where we talked a little bit about this. And so you and I will get into some of the same questions and things that we talked about on that. But let's back up to for a minute and talk a little bit about digital literacy. What is digital literacy?
Well, the textbook answer, let me read out the textbook answer. I prepared this. The textbook answer of digital literacy is the ability to find, evaluate, create, and communicate. Ability to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information using digital technologies. It's a lot of things. For me, though, digital literacy, that definition, it's a little short. As long as it might sound, it actually left out one crucial aspect. It is the ability to find, evaluate, create, and communicate information using digital technologies responsibly and safely. That's what digital literacy is about. If you think about learning driving, and I think maybe this is the easiest example, you don't just learn how to use a car. You learned how to use the car responsibly and safely. You learned how to drive. You learned how to indicate when you before you turn. You learn how to slow down when you're approaching a red light. You learn how to assess situations. So it is being responsible and being safe in using a certain technology to be able to navigate and protect the environment around you. So digital literacy has to include that component.
Yeah, well, and that's something, that there's all this technology that we've unleashed and fintechs and all these things. And, people don't really understand how they're used. I mean, they understand how to get started and how to do certain things, but they don't really understand, like Venmo is popular in the United States. I don't know if that's a global platform for sending cash around, but once the cash has been sent from one account to another, it's gone. and you can't get it back. And I think things like that people don't know. So let's get a little bit into your company, White Byte. How does White Byte help adults help their aging parents?
Um, well, because my mother was scammed, and the reason why White Byte was started was because of her. I first started focusing on the seniors. And one of the things that stood out to me as I was teaching them, I then realized this is just half of the equation. As much as I can keep telling the seniors, the elderly, this is what you should do, this is what you should avoid, but they are different from us and they are different from their adult children. So it needs that support. And very often I would propose to organizations to say, can I come and deliver a lunch and learn for your organization? You can choose either a parenting talk or you can choose a talk for adults who are supporting and caregiving for their for their aging parents. So these two kind of workshops do help the adults who are the sandwich generation, whether they have children, whether they have the aging adults. So how do they help their parents? One of the things is first to realize that they are different from us. They come from a different generation, and the way they interact is very different. So first thing, they have to realize that parents pick up the phone because that's the generation they grew up with. When the phone rings, they didn't have mobile phones. When the phone rings, what do? It will drive you bananas if you don't pick up the phone. So you pick up the phone. So when the phone rings, they would instinctively pick up the phone. And for us to keep telling them, stop picking up numbers that you do not know, it doesn't, they have got 40, 50, 60 years of learned behavior to be instinctive about picking up the phone. So it's not to tell them not to pick up the phone, but it's to then teach them a few things, a few steps on what to do if they do pick up the phone. First, never say hello. Wait for
Hmm.
the other person to talk to you first. Why never say hello? Because deepfake technology, it catches nuances of your voice, it records your voice, it starts to learn the modulation of your voice, and they can then use your voice to mimic other scams that would then potentially target people whom you know. So never say hello first. Wait for the other person to say hello, and then you can respond with a hello because it's too short for them to record anything. And then they would ask the first question. If they say, how are you? Do you know who you are? Do you know who I am? Guess who? Things like that. Then just hang up the phone because we've got no time to play games. That's
Mhm.
one. The second thing to do would be periodically go through your parents' phone with their permission. Use it as a bonding time and just ask, hey mom, hey pops, can I take a look at your phone? I think it's been a while. Just let me check if there are any security patches that they wouldn't understand patches. Are there any security updates that need to be done? Let me do that for you. Come sit with me. Take the phone with them next to you, check for security patches, update where possible, and then after that, go through number one, the phone book. Are there any numbers, unidentified numbers, meaning that there are a lot of numbers but no names to it? Then just ask them, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? Again, they can remember numbers a lot better than the younger generation because that's how they're trained. They might be able to tell you, oh, this is Auntie Mildred. All right, then save Auntie Mildred into that phone number. So do as many as you can. Then the second thing to do is to look at the phone interfaces. And I do this for my mother every other month. And every other month, I'll be wondering, why do you have 4 pages worth of apps in there? My mother doesn't work. She has
Mhm.
dementia. She doesn't even play games. But why does she have 4 different pages of apps? It's because sometimes during WhatsApp, when their friends send them links, send them pictures, send them messages, when they click on it, in the background, apps are being downloaded. And she doesn't know
Mhm.
this. So that's what you need to do. The second thing would be go through the interfaces, go through all the pages, and delete things that she doesn't need. So just have that conversation and use that as a bonding moment. And this is really important. Take that not as a teaching moment, but as a bonding moment with your seniors at home. Just ask them, oh, do you need this? Why do you need this? Do you know what is it? Oh, I don't know. Oh, if you don't know, this is what it is, and I don't think you need it, so I'm going to delete it for you. Are you all right with that, Mom? And then if she says, oh, yeah, I need that, and then to ask the question, oh, why do you need it? What do you use it for? It's also a way for you to learn about your parents. And you might be surprised. Maybe they are actually more digitally savvy than what we thought. So use that. 2 tips. Number one, check their phone list. And then number two, just make sure that you delete any unwanted apps and update all the notifications for privacy.
Those are some fantastic tips. I have heard the one about never say hello. I didn't realize that that was just enough, for them to grab it to start building that profile. Something that's come up is, has come up on other conversations is that parents picking up the phone because they are going to pick up the phone and they are going to talk to strangers. It is funny. We become our parents at a certain point. When they told us not to talk to strangers when we were little, is
Yes.
they're going to talk to strangers. Sometimes they're lonely, or sometimes, there is a little bit of mental decline. And I had another guest on who does health research, and he said basically everybody starts having some level of mental decline after
Yep.
about age 60, so that it's inevitable. So when you throw that in, is, with the parents doing that, them having a mental decline, is what other do you have any other tips, or is that pretty much that you have to just not necessarily play catch up, but help monitor as much as you can?
It's really monitoring. So one of the things that I remind my mother is just relying back on what she's familiar with. So exactly as what you said, our parents used to tell us, be aware of strangers. So I always tell her, stranger danger, doesn't know the number, don't pick up. Stranger danger, if you don't know the number, don't pick up. Don't release anything. So stranger danger is something that we're familiar with. My mother can understand. So wherever you are, in whichever country that you're listening in, think about that. What would your parents remember, and what would your parents have taught you to be mindful of as a child? Then use that same advice back to them. But just be respectful and not say, remember, you used to tell me this, but no, it's just say it as a fact, right? Stranger danger, don't know the number, don't answer, right? So it has a good ring to it. Stranger danger, don't know the answer, don't know the number, don't answer. So then just keep playing that. And the other thing would be in your bonding time with them, as you're going through the phone, just ask them, oh, did you receive any calls today? Who did you speak with? Did Flora call you, which is my sister?
Mhm.
Did Auntie Mary call you? And then, oh, who else called you? Who did you speak with? So it is leading them to then, once they're comfortable, even with mental decline, it then unlocks a certain part of their short-term memory to be able to tell you certain things. So it's just through prompts like that. Of course, this only works when it is in the early stages of mental decline, like when it first starts in their 60s, in their 70s, it is still all right, it is doable, it is workable. So just get into that conversation and find out who has she spoken to. What did you talk about? And from there, you should be able to get some sense of um, whether some conversations were suspicious. Even if she said, oh, yes, I spoke to Auntie Mary, and she has fallen into hard times. Little Joe isn't doing well, so she asked me for some money. That is when your alarm bell should trigger, because Auntie Mary might not be Auntie Mary. And you should then call Auntie Mary yourself and ask about Joe and inquire whether Joe really did fall on hard times. If he hadn't, then call the bank and block whatever transactions that is pending. And if it has gone through, just find out the amount is lost, and yeah, then you have to take your parents through a little bit of a counseling and coaching, so that they would be more mindful the next time around. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the tips that Kathy Sikorsky,
Mm,
my guest on that episode, suggested is putting a post-it on the telephone, as a reminder to, if anything with money comes up, her tips were a lot shorter than this, but, to call their person, in this case, it would be you, I'd imagine,
mm,
for your mom or your sister, Flora,
mm,
to check in. And I think that's something you can do with parents as well. I know that what we've done for my wife's mom is that my wife and her sister are co-account holders on everything, so they can monitor the
mm,
accounts in real time to see if there is any movement, because that's oftentimes what happens is that they get into, which is exactly what happened with your mom, is they get into the bank accounts
mm.
and things like that. And so if you're a co-account holder with your parents, you can monitor the activity in real time and see if something's happening.
Mm. So
So,
just a little bit about that. I think that that works in certain jurisdictions and it doesn't. So in Singapore, it works fine with having joint accounts. In Malaysia, there are certain restrictions in having joint accounts. So even if you have a joint account for pension workers, they are not allowed to have joint accounts. So there are
oh,
certain rules around that. And with the post-it, so one of the things that I noticed with my mother is in 3 years now, she has forgotten how to use the phone. She can only
oh,
check WhatsApp messages. So even if I were to put a post-it there, she wouldn't be able to call me. She wouldn't know. She doesn't even always remember how to type and respond via text anymore. So some of the things I think they are great advice, really really helpful. Putting the post-it, maybe on the reverse side, just instead of a post-it, just make sure you do a cellophane tape it so that it doesn't fall off, drive away, and
oh, yeah.
a clear casing would help, where you just put it inside. So just things like that. Really really good tips. I appreciate that. I put the link on the episode. I think I'll go back and pick out some of these tips and share it with my community as well.
Yeah, it was a fantastic episode. We had three people on, and who
Wow.
specialize in this area. And one woman, Cameron Huddleston, worked for. There's an app in the U.S. called Careful, which helps monitor account. Are you familiar with Careful?
I haven't heard of Careful, and I would Google it after this. Mm,
Yeah. So, for everybody watching and listening, if you're in the US, Careful is an app that helps monitor your parents' financial accounts and sends you alerts and keeps you in the loop on their utilities and also in their late paying bills and other things. Because if your parents are going to mental decline, they may also not be paying their bills or missing other important financial things. So it's all important. So, before we start to wrap up, let's talk a little bit about marginalized communities, or maybe actually there's two questions I want to make sure we get to. Is one is how can we start to build a safer and more inclusive cyber ecosystem?
Oh, it's definitely a whole society approach. In the old days, when I was growing up, I remember there was this thing called the Neighborhood Watch Group. I think well, the US dramas, Hollywood tells me there is still this in the US neighborhood watch group.
Hmm.
So you have volunteers in your neighborhood and they will do a patrol, they will do a policing. It's pretty much the same. How do we do that and replicate that online? We just need to look out for one another. I always tell parents in a parenting talk to say, you are all here. It's just a networking opportunity, and share tips with one another on what has worked for you to look after your children and what hasn't. What are some of the risks and challenging behaviors that you have observed about your children, and share with one another, right? And then you can come up with ways to then help one another to get better. Um, Teach your community and volunteer to be part of these community networks. Look out for the elderly. Maybe as a community, as a neighborhood watch group, what you could do is just set up a little kiosk once a month, have the seniors come, and then you can then do what I mentioned earlier, have a conversation with them, just make sure that their phone patches, security updates are done, delete unwanted apps, and if maybe their children actually are living across the country and they don't have access to this is what you could do for the seniors in your community.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Actually, I'm thinking that maybe I should contact my local senior center and volunteer to give a presentation on the 7 habits of highly effective scammers. Volunteer in my local
Yeah,
community as well.
yes.
But that's great tips. And I think something you said there is really important is if they're networking with other seniors, they're going to open up in a very different way than they are with their kids. And I think that's very important because they're peers. And I think there's a lot of shame, in talking to your kids and admitting that you're vulnerable. And so I think that's really important. The other thing I've heard in people that work with multi-generational, uh, the parents and the adult kids, is that the adult kids need to open up first and talk about their own situation. And that gets the parents more comfortable than just grilling them. That's why, as you phrase it, making it a bonding experience rather than an interrogation really helps. That's wonderful advice. I would urge everybody who has some expertise in this area to reach out and volunteer. Maybe we can all do it together and share ideas. Reach out to me if you're interested. Um, so the last question is, how can digital literacy itself help marginalized communities?
Oh, I am excited about digitalization. I think it's given us a lot of conveniences and benefits. And in marginalized society, I don't think they fully exploit the conveniences and the benefits that are available to them. So when they are digitally more savvy, they would be able to do this. So imagine with digitalization, now we have banking that's being made available. So the cost of having a bank account and maintaining a bank account has gone down. It is easier for these communities now to have access to open a bank account. They don't have to pay for a bus fare, wait for 2 hours, get to the bank, queue for another hour, and all that time and the money spent just going down to the bank to do some activities that has been taken away. So that makes it easier. The second thing would be jobs. A lot of people are saying, okay, digitalization has put people out of jobs. To some extent, it has, but it has opened up opportunities as well. Jobs are available as gig jobs, as fractional projects. So think about it. How do you exploit digitalization? Jobs are not just where you go into an office, into a brick building. Jobs can be done anywhere, wherever you are, just online. So why was Fiverr so advanced and it was like a breakthrough platform many years ago? So why were these things available? And now we can do bookings for hotels for ourselves, so all these things can be done. Why is content creation so important? Why does everyone want to be a TikToker? Because they are all jobs. I don't know if we have time, but I'm going to do it anyway. I've got a
Yeah,
little
yeah, go
story to
for it,
tell. So I was on a
please.
holiday. I was invited for a workshop in Vietnam, and then I asked them, can I just stay for half a day more? And they said yes. And so I booked myself on a half-day tour. So during the tour, I met this couple. They came from Myanmar. So Myanmar is going through a civil discourse, and I, coming from privileged Singapore, totally forgot about that. We sat down for dinner, and then so we all had conversations with all my travel mates. I asked them, oh, where are you going after this? Where are you going after this? Where are you going after this? They're all strangers. We all met on the tour. And this Myanmar couple told me that, I asked them, are you going home after this, or are you going somewhere else? And they said, we can't go home. And I looked at them, oh,
Mhm.
why? Why can't you go home? It's like bad question, Francis. And they said, we are exiled. We can't go home because my
Wow.
country is at war. And then I was speechless. So I asked, how do you fund your travels? They were 25 and 27 years old. And they said,
Wow.
"Oh, we work while we're on the road." And I said, "I notice while we are going from one place to another, you're constantly on the phone." They said, "Yes." And they picked up the bag, they opened it up, and they said, "Look." And in their phone, in their bags was not just one or two mobile phones, it was a bag full of mobile phones. They
Oh,
were all to help them manage their clients from all over the world. They were,
wow.
yeah, I get goosebumps. They were just digital platform creators. They were digital content creators. So that was what they were doing. So digitalization actually opens up opportunities, is how you want to interpret the opportunity and how you want to find them.
I love that. It opens up opportunities. It's just, it's different. And I think that's what we need to realize is that things are changing,
Mm,
some good, some bad. That's how change
yeah.
always is we're in an age of disruption. Especially with AI, it's everything's changing. And so you just have to learn how to recognize the opportunities and avoid the pitfalls. It's easy to say, right?
Exactly. Yeah, that's why you need to keep making these shows, Tony.
That's why. But it's people like you who are out there making a difference with organizations like White Byte. So to wrap up, Francis, we have what I call the Get Ready Hot Take Trio. These are three quick questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is, what's one myth about scams that you're trying to break?
Hmm. The myth would be scams only happen to vulnerable people. That is a myth. So, who are the vulnerable? We might have certain biases on who these vulnerable people are, but we are all vulnerable. So, scammers are bad people, um, but not all scammers are bad people. So, while we are all vulnerable, that's a myth. First myth. The second myth would be some scammers are just scammed into the situation. So, yeah, just don't think badly of all scammers.
Yeah, and it gets into what you were talking about with crime. As I understand it, there are some criminal rings where they actually hold people hostage and make
Yes.
them do scams. I'm not sure I phrased that very well, but I think hopefully everybody understands what I was trying to say there. And that, so as you said, it is a person still. Some of them have ill intent, but unfortunately, a lot of it is part of an organized ring or whatever word you want
Yep,
to use.
that's
So,
right.
Francis, let's get out the time machine. If you could go back in time, what advice would you give your younger self, knowing what you know now about scams?
Well, I would tell myself to check in on my elderly relatives. I wouldn't want the same thing to have happened to my mother to actually repeat itself. So that would be the thing. If I'd done that, if I've checked in, all the tips that I've shared today about having a conversation, checking in on them, clearing their apps, then perhaps I could have prevented this from yeah, my mom. So it will help my younger self to have known that.
Yeah, it's always a learning process. Um, so, to wrap up, what is your number one tip to help people change the way they think about scams or money in general?
Well, park aside your biases. Scams have no discrimination to age, to intelligence, to gender. We are all vulnerable. It can happen to CEOs. It has happened to professors. It has happened to the young, to the old as well. In Singapore, the Singapore statistics actually tells us that the higher percentage of those who are scammed fall between 39 years old to 49 years old. They aren't
Wow.
the elderly. So do we call them the vulnerable? Yeah. So stay vigilant. Stop to spot the red flags and do a self check of your intentions before releasing any of your funds.
I love that. And I think that's something that we tend to think about is that it's something that might happen to someone else, but that we
Mm,
can all be targeted or we all are being targeted, and it's just if we're tuned into the red flags and understanding that if something sounds too good to be true, it probably is. Those old sayings that you hear are accurate.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So, Francis, where can people learn more about you and White Byte?
Oh, you can check out White Byte at white, as in the color white, WHITE, byte, BYTE, so whitebyte.org, O-R-G.
Fantastic. And for everybody watching and listening, if you have access to the show notes, you can go to the show notes and there'll be a link to the White Byte website. Francis, thanks for joining us on the Get Ready Before Life Happens podcast.
Thank you, Tony. It's been my pleasure.
Yeah, and thank you everyone as always for tuning into this episode. If you learned something today to change the way you think about scams and money, please be sure to subscribe and to share with a friend. You can also go to my website at tonystewart.com and join the Get Ready movement to get access to my free toolkit of resources and subscribe to my newsletter. Until next time, let's change the way we think about money.